All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about something that can either supercharge your business or, well, completely stall it out, and that's pricing. It's so much more than just a number. It's a huge piece of your strategy. So in this explainer, we're going to break down the expert guide to getting it right. It's a tough question to ask yourself, right? But it's a really important one. So many businesses pour everything they have into building a fantastic product, but then they stumble at the finish line with their pricing. And that can lead to slow growth, super confused customers, and a feeling that you're just spinning your wheels.
So let's talk about the problem itself. You might know the feeling. You've got this awesome product. People who use it seem to love it, but for some reason, the revenue just isn't taking off like you thought it would. More often than not, the real culprit is a pricing strategy that's just off.
And this quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head. It gets right to the heart of the matter. It really doesn't matter if you have all the bells and whistles in the world. If your price just feels wrong to a customer, if it doesn't line up with what they expect, they're just not going to click buy. It's that simple. That's where growth stalls. When it comes to pricing, you've really got two roads you can go down. On one side, you've got the wrong way, which is honestly the most common. That's pricing based on a gut feeling or just peeking at what your competitor's doing and knocking a few bucks off. Then there's the right way, the pro way. And that's a strategy built on solid research, data, and a real understanding of what your customers actually find valuable.
Okay, so how can you tell if your pricing is part of the problem? Well, luckily, you don't have to wait for a disaster to strike. There's some really clear warning signs, some red flags that can tell you your pricing might be holding you back. Let's take a look.
Let's see if any of these hit a little too close to home. First, are you the cheapest option on the block but still struggling to grow? That's a huge red flag. It probably means price isn't the real issue. Second, are your customers kind of confused about your different plans? If they can't easily see why they'd pick Pro over Premium, your tiers aren't working. Third, if you're constantly running discounts just to get people in the door, you're teaching them to value your price, not your product. Fourth, if you're always adding cool new features, but your price hasn't budged in years, you're just leaving money on the table. And that last one is a biggie. If nobody ever buys your most expensive plan, it's a sign that it isn't actually offering enough value to justify the cost. All right, enough doom and gloom. Let's talk solutions. It's time to get into the expert framework, the kind of playbook that top-tier leaders like fractional CMOs use to build pricing that actually works. And this isn't about guesswork. It's a methodical, step-by-step process. Now, before we get into the actual steps, it's important to get the mindset right. An expert brings objectivity. They're not emotionally tied to a price you set 2 years ago. They're looking at the data. They also bring a wide view of what's happening across the entire industry. And this last one is so important. They make sure product, finance, and sales are all aligned and working together. That collaboration is absolutely key. And here it is, the 6-step winning strategy. It all starts with a deep dive into your competition, not just what they charge, but how they position their value. Step 2 is about creating specific packages for specific audiences, not just generic tiers. Step 3 is the core of it all, aligning your price with the perceived worth of your product. From there, you figure out your bundling strategy, you test everything, and finally, you optimize the heck out of your checkout flow to make it as easy as possible to buy. I want to pause on that term from step 3 for a second, because it is so central to this whole thing, value-based pricing. Look, this isn't about what it costs you to build your product. It's about what your solution is worth to the customer. Are you saving them 10 hours a week? Are you helping them double their leads? Are you reducing their risk? That's the value, and that's what you should be pricing. So you've got this great new strategy. Awesome. But how do you know if it's actually working? You can't just feel it. You need cold, hard data. This is where you separate the real pros from the amateurs. Let's look at a real-world example here. There was this company, Freshly Meals. They had a really solid product that people liked, but they were just stuck. They were struggling to grow. Sound familiar? It's that classic problem we talked about at the beginning. And check this out. After they went back and strategically reworked their pricing and their messaging using a playbook just like this one, boom, they scaled to over 100 orders a month. And get this, they didn't change the product itself. This was all about changing the pricing and how they talked about it. That's the kind of power we're talking about. So what should you be looking at in your own business? Well, you want to watch these 3 key areas. First, your conversion rates for each plan, or tier. That tells you what's popular and what's being ignored. Second, you look at churn. Who's leaving and from which plan? That can point to a mismatch in price and value. And finally, you track the growth in your LTV, that's lifetime value, and your ARPU, or average revenue per user. If those numbers are going up, you know you're on the right track.
So, let's bring it all home. If you take just one thing away from this whole explainer, let it be this. It's time to shift your mindset. Stop guessing, stop blindly copying your competition, and start building your pricing around the genuine, measurable value you provide to your customers.
And I want to end on this quote because it perfectly sums up the so what. Why should you go through all this effort? Because getting your pricing right is maybe the single fastest way to make more money and spend less to get new customers. It's a true win-win for your business. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. This whole strategic approach we've walked through, it's really about answering this one question. It's about shifting from a game of guesswork to a position of data-driven confidence. So what could that kind of change mean for your business?